Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Paul Robinson. We're going to give folks about 60 to 90 seconds to get in. We see some more people jumping on. Some people might be getting back from lunch or a meeting. So let's give it 60 to 90 seconds, and then we will kick off the webinar for those who are on already. Thank you so much for joining, and look forward to having a good conversation today. Thank you. Okay, why don't we get started here? Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. This is again Paul Robinson with IGI Cybersecurity, and really thankful that you have joined us for this discussion today. We want to keep it as interactive as possible. We do have a small group here, so if there are any questions or anything that you would like to chime in on, please feel free and comfortable to do that on this discussion. So this spawned from a lot of conversations that we've had here at IGI with agents and partners that have shared their apprehension into talking about cybersecurity with their clients. And I get it, and we get it as a whole here at IGI that it is an intimidating subject at times, and it can be very complex. But what we want to do is encourage you with some pragmatic ways of being able to talk to your clients about cybersecurity, to A, help them out, and to B, help your business out as well. As you'll see through the content, there are a lot of different ways that this could be mutually beneficial for both your clients and for yourselves as well. So again, we have a saying here at IGI, you cannot sell cybersecurity. You can identify a problem and align solutions to those problems that the client has. So we want to go through a little bit of, again, pragmatic ways of being able to do that. We're going to start today with a poll, quick poll that Nora is going to put up for us, and we will be taking some answers from that. So the question is, when was the last time you talked to a client about cybersecurity? We have this morning, we have last week, we have last month, and then if the answer is what is cybersecurity, we have plenty of things that you can learn in the next 30 to 45 minutes here. So looks like a lot of people have had frequent conversations. That's great. That's excellent to see. Glad that people are talking to clients about cybersecurity. And let me get my screen sharing here. Great, I believe I'm sharing. Nor you could text me, let me know if I'm not sharing, but I believe I am sharing. So if you are in transit right now, please do not pull out pens and papers. We want you to drive or travel safely. But for those of you that are stationary at this point, wanted to start out with a little quiz here for you to kind of get you thinking a little bit about where we're going with this discussion. So we have 5 questions here and then a bonus question. So the first question is, write down 3 of your biggest clients' names. So envision 3 of your biggest clients, the ones that, when you have your internal meetings or you have entertaining to do for clients, these are the 3 client names that you always think about. And then what do they do to make money? What do these organizations produce? What goods or services do they produce to generate revenue inside of the organization? And then how do they rely on technology and digital data? What are they currently doing to generate revenue, and what is their reliance on all sorts of things? So desktops, laptops, mobile phones, cloud instances, applications, things of that nature. Think about that a little bit. Then think about what they have purchased through your company. Take a gander back and think to, okay, what have they been, what have they bought from us? What are they relying on us for our expertise from a technology perspective, and we're providing for them. And then what is their annual spend with the company? So think back again, 12 months, what have they spent in the last 12 months? Was 50,000, 100,000, whatever the amount is, think back to how much that they are spending with your company. And then the bonus question is, what is their annual spend if they stop doing business with you? Hopefully we know that answer, but we'll have you write that down and answer that question as well. So what we're doing here is we're building a case, in order to make sure that you understand and know your clients. It's important to know the ins and outs of a business, whether it's with cybersecurity or any technology that you are selling, to know the ins and outs of it. I know sometimes the sales folks and folks that are doing consulting, we think about, okay, what do I have in my tool chest that I can provide for the organization, and not really get into the nook and crannies of the organization and what it is they do. Very important, especially when we're talking about cybersecurity. One of the problems that we have in the cybersecurity community, I think, especially from a vendor side that I see, is that we try to water down cybersecurity. Automation is out there. Automation is awesome. It's great. And those are good things as well. We can apply staffing to cybersecurity and making it a little bit easier. But the fact is, these are things that are tied into cybersecurity, and it's best to be upfront about it and not try to hide behind the fact. So the first thing is that it's hard. Cybersecurity is hard. The analogy that I use sometimes is, if I need to lose weight, I can take a shortcut and maybe take a pill or, do whatever to lose weight. But really what it's about is my health. What am I doing for my health? Am I eating better? Am I exercising more? And that takes a lot of hard work and discipline. It's the same thing with cybersecurity. There are no quick fixes in cybersecurity and risk. The criminals don't take the easy path to that. They do a lot of work, a lot of reconnaissance to conduct the business that they conduct, which is obviously illegal, but it's hard work on that side, and it's hard work from the client side as well. It's expensive. It does cost money. The hitting gotcha with cybersecurity is it's one of those things that you spend on that will not immediately take the organization from red to black. It is an investment that you do not see immediate returns on, and especially with the economic climate that we have these days. That's a tough pill to swallow for some. But spending the investments could lead to saving a lot of money, if not the whole business, on the back end. We'll get a little bit more into that as our conversation goes on. There's another currency in cybersecurity that we don't consider, but it does come up when we're working on cybersecurity, and that's a currency of time. It does take time, even with providing solutions and services like IGI does or other organizations do. There is time on the client side that needs to be taken in order to make sure that the organization is resilient and protecting themselves. So it's imperative to know, as you're consulting with folks, that yeah, it is going to take time. But most importantly, it is necessary. We can't stress enough here from the IGI side that it is necessary to have a cybersecurity program and defenses and resiliency plans in place in order to protect the business. You're not going to hear a lot of zeros and ones or deep talk here from a cybersecurity perspective. Again, we want to make you comfortable in talking to your clients about this. And really what it comes down to is this is going to save organizations' businesses. To be down for any amount of time and not generating revenue, some organizations can come back from that and some organizations can't. And if I was to place a bet on it, I would say that some of your largest clients could not afford massive amounts of downtime without producing their own goods and services. It is necessary to put up these defenses and resiliency plans. So this is kind of an ode back to my generation and how old I am. The more you know, different segues that would come out during your Saturday morning cartoons. I saw this and kind of brought me back to a less stressful time of life and whatever. But we want to talk about things that you need to know in order to have these conversations. So again, kind of showing my age here, giving a little ode back to our friend Alanis Morissette with You Ought to Know, and then saving your clients from swallowing a jagged little pill. So here are the things that we want you to know before talking to your clients about cybersecurity. As I mentioned, know their business, know what makes them money, know exactly what it is that they're doing. How many locations do they have? How many employees do they have? What is their reputation throughout their industry or their environment? Is very important. Knowing their industry is very important as well. There are a massive amount of compliances that are out there that are industry based. So you think of healthcare, you think of HIPAA, HIPAA is the way that you spell it. I know some security folks out there, so that was a little joke towards them. PCI, CMMC is another compliance that's out there. But in knowing their industry, you know how these compliances impact their industry. A lot of regulations are coming down the pipeline to make sure that businesses are taking the best care of data and intellectual property and technologies that these organizations have to make sure that they are staying intact there. So know the industry that they're in, very, very important. Know what their key digital assets are, kind of going back to what you've sold them in the past. Technology is great. You'll run up against some cybersecurity people that are like, deaf to technology. It's only making matters worse. And I don't feel that way. I think technology is awesome. It helped us a lot during lockdowns during COVID. It kept people in business because we were able to use technology to conduct business no matter where we were at. But it's important for you to understand, what their key digital assets are. Are they in the cloud? Are they using contact center? Are they using SD-WAN? What applications are they using? Where are these applications stored? It's very important in the conversation. Know who can go to jail. Yeah, that's a very provocative statement that I'm making right there. But there are legalities and litigation around mishandling or not using data correctly from customers or vendors as well. And this kind of goes to what cybersecurity can mean for you. If you're in an account of yours and you're kind of in the lower levels, not to demean an IT manager or network engineer, I would say that they're slightly concerned about cybersecurity and risk. But really where the big worry is and the big challenges are in the C levels and the executive and the board level of folks who can really, have a lot of damage caused to them personally if something were to go wrong. I always say that you can go on Indeed.com right now and you can look at IT manager jobs and network engineer jobs, and there are tons of them all throughout the country. You can work remote. You get, people are competing from a salary perspective. An IT manager and network engineer, if God forbid, a business were to shut down or they were to lose their job, could find something. But you don't see many chief operating officer jobs, CFO jobs, CEO jobs that are available out there. And the C-level folks know this, and they want to protect their best interests, their own personal interests, as well as the business as well. So in speaking about cybersecurity and risk to the C-level people, you're going to be adding tremendous value to the higher level folks that maybe you haven't had a chance to talk to before. Then another thing is to know your risk. So let's talk about your business model for a second here. We talked about your 3 biggest clients and what their annual spend is with you. Imagine if that were to go away, because here's the fact of the matter. If 3 of your biggest clients were to experience a ransomware attack that would take them down for several weeks or months, or ultimately shut the business down, they can't pay the bill for the other technologies that you've sold them. So that's going to negatively impact your business as well. So it would behoove you to have these conversations. And again, it's not being selfish, but again, we're all in here for our businesses and to protect our businesses and to keep them healthy and growing. It's also important to keep an eye on what our risks are as well. So one of the things that we like to do here at IGI is to tell stories around cybersecurity. And Because really what happens is that when you talk to folks about cyber and there's some of the mainstream things, it's like, okay, you can talk about Sony, or you can talk about, the meatpacking organization that experienced a ransomware, or the Colonial Pipeline. And, these are massive stories, these are massive incidents that have taken place. And a lot of us on here are dealing with SMB, mid-sized level enterprise businesses. So that kind of stuff goes over their head, and like, okay, that's happening to Fortune 10, Fortune 500 companies, top 10 healthcare organizations. I don't really, it's not going to bother me. So what we like to do is to share stories with our partners and our agents to tell to organizations, and it allows you to use a phrase that I think is very powerful. And I'd love to have you to write this down or just remember it. And that it goes as follows. I heard this, or I saw this, and I thought of you. There is a lot of power around empathy in dealing with your organizations when it comes to cybersecurity, to really humanize what can happen here. There's a line of delineation that takes place a lot of times where we don't correlate the digital world and the physical world. So these stories are kind of tailored to share with you, what could potentially happen in the physical world if the digital world is disrupted. So the first story is, imagine engaging in litigation with your largest customer. You're probably reading that and you're like, how in the world can that possibly happen? So it's actually was one of the first weeks that I was here at IGI. I've been fortunate enough to be in the space for several years, but this was my first week here at IGI, and we had a customer call in that experienced a ransomware attack at their manufacturing plant, locked the whole things down. We had about $400,000 to $500,000 worth of shipments that couldn't go out because everything came to a screeching halt with the ransomware attack that took place. What was the interesting piece about this was, as we started to do forensics and investigation, we discovered that it might not have been their fault, and it could have been one of their customers' fault that they were transmitting data from back and forth. And so it got into a he said, she said match, and it got a little contentious, not a little, a lot contentious. And the lawyer for the client said that they should enter into litigation and sue their largest customer for damages and whatnot. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what the rationale was behind that, but I definitely took a back seat to that conversation, and our team did as well, because we are not lawyers, nor do we play any on TV. So we took a step back, but that's exactly what they did. They actually ended up suing their largest customer for damages that were assumed based off of the information that was found. Now we'll go back to a quiz question. How much money is a company making from their largest customer after they sue them? The answer, in case we don't know here, is zero. So it caused a whole bunch of upheaval on that portion. So that's a real life story that took place, and it's something that you can share with businesses that you work with, and let them understand that. The second piece is, imagine missing your child's senior sports banquet. So a few years ago, I got a call at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday from a client, and I could hear beeping and running around on the back end. And this was a very large healthcare organization that experienced a full-blown ransomware attack. It was actually one of the largest ransomware attacks stateside at the time. We're talking about surgeries that had to be canceled. We're talking about people that were delayed in getting prescriptions because of the prescription application that was down. It was just mass chaos. One of the reasons I have the data center in here is one of the craziest things that I'd ever seen was I showed up a couple hours after everything had broke, and there were actually cots being set up in the data center to have network engineers, security team members to sleep over, because they were working multiple shifts and having to cover everything. Because of the industry of healthcare that they were in, there were a lot of legalities, a lot of high-level meetings that had to take place for the executive team. And one of the executives had to be on a call with several of these three-letter organizations that we know and love, and could not miss the call. Legally could not miss the call. And that call came along the same time of their child's senior sports soccer banquet. So again, this is where the real world is being impacted by the digital world. I just can't imagine. I'm a father of four, and just love my kids and their accolades that they have, and all the amazing things that they do. And I couldn't imagine missing a milestone such as this because of something that came up. And in this case, it was a cyber incident that took place. Again, this is something very personal, very intimate to people. Again, zeros and ones, bits and bytes can only go so far. But when you kind of explain to your client base the potential ramifications in the real world of things that can happen, is very important to understand. The last one I have here is imagine fielding angry client calls for 12 hours a day for weeks. So this is a incident that we've been recently working on for an organization that experienced a ransomware attack. And the catch on this one was that they're a very, very rich client base from the perspective of, we're talking about Fortune 500 organizations, regional banks, healthcare, the whole nine. And so when these organizations are regulated and something potentially happens with their data or their instances, there could be a big problem from a third-party risk perspective. So, kid you not, it was 12 hours a day for a couple of weeks where the CEO, the CFO, the COO, some of our team members here at IGI were helping facilitate some of the calls as well. Clients angry, I mean furious, that, hey, I thought you had this protected, I thought you had this under control. I'm getting questions from our legal team as to what happened, and just getting beaten up day in and day out for these, for half a day for weeks. Really, really painful, really painful experience to go through. And this is something else that you could talk to clients about, to say, hey, listen, could you afford to have your executive team on calls when there's all this other stuff that needs to get done to get the business back to a resiliency state, to generate revenue, to set forth the vision from an executive level? Could you pull them all off for 12 hours in a day for a couple of weeks, to just get yelled and screamed at for the duration of the 60-minute call? That is something that I can't imagine anybody saying, oh yeah, we can handle that. Like, that's no big deal, no problem. I'm not really worried about that. Again, using this example to kind of speak to the C-level folks, to say, okay, what risk can we mitigate for you? What ways can we help you out? So the question is, what happens if I don't? What happens if I don't talk about cybersecurity or risk to my client base? The ramifications go as follows. You're not providing holistic value to your client. And it's a pretty direct statement, but it's true. If you have great businesses on here, I'm looking at some of the people that are attending, very solid businesses, providing great goods and services to your client base. But if you're not talking about cybersecurity, you're missing a very big piece of the puzzle. These are things that, again, it's difficult to talk about. It's difficult to kind of take people down that mindset of what cybersecurity and risk can mean. But again, it's providing that holistic value to your client. Their company can go out of business. We kind of touched on this a little bit. I've had the unfortunate task of seeing a couple of businesses go out completely because they were unrecoverable from a ransomware attack. And these are small to medium-sized businesses too. And it used to be where people would say, oh, I'm a small business. They want JP Morgan Chase or Bank of America, or pick your largest company. They don't want anything to do with me. And that's absolutely not the case. Over COVID, from March 2020 to March 2001, there was an increase. I believe it was 368% of growth of ransomware attack on small to medium-sized businesses, because they knew that organizations were kind of shifting to this hybrid work from home model, and knew that people weren't taking into consideration what, from a security perspective, how to protect data now that it was offline. Now that, I'm sorry, out of network is a better way of putting it. The executive, executive admin has access to financials or to, SEC documentation for a publicly traded company, and now they're on, their home Wi-Fi that's not password protected, and causing issues from that perspective. To down to, there was a mandate that came out by the SEC that if you were working from home, and this came out during COVID, you need to shut off your Alexas, or you need to shut off your Google Home products, because what was happening was that attackers were jumping onto these devices and listening in on calls that again could change the stock price, or you could talk about intellectual property, and secrets could be stolen from the at-home Alexa devices, and ultimately take you out of business. So again, it is that serious. Like I said, I've sat at tables before. It is gruesome. It is absolutely awful. And we don't want to see that happen. And that's why we encourage folks to talk about resiliency and protection around their business. You can go out of business. Again, another kind of strong statement here, but we kind of touched on this as well earlier, in that if your largest clients were taken out of business because of a ransomware attack, and they were no longer able to pay you, that could put your business in jeopardy as well. I know we have some agents on here that have awesome lifestyle businesses. I love it. I love the fact that you're able to do that. It's fantastic. But it's kind of tenuous and treacherous at times when you're like, oh my goodness, if I lost 3 of my biggest clients, like that could really put my my business model in severe jeopardy. We don't want to see that happen. We want you to be able to continue to work with these organizations, sell other goods and services to them, and to keep them healthy and generating revenue. You could also be leaving valuable assets on the table. I can't begin to tell you the amount of times I talked with agents and partners alike that said, oh man, I just found out that somebody bought cybersecurity technology through another third party, or they brought a penetration test through another third party. And the question is, well, why? What was it from an IGI perspective that we didn't have that the other organization had? And they said, well, nothing. I just didn't know because I didn't have the conversation. So, from a business growth perspective, from your perspective, it is truly valuable to make sure that you're having the conversations, to make sure that you're maximizing the dollars that you can capture from your organization, from the organizations that you're working with. And then I have here, lean on us. Leaning on us is very important. We here at IGI are cybersecurity purists. We don't expect you as agents and partners alike to know everything, to be the experts on things. That's where we want you to come to us. We live, eat, breathe cybersecurity from our business development perspective. We have a services team that is very willing and able to jump on calls with your clients to kind of guide them through of where they need to go from a cybersecurity perspective. We have some amazing partnerships to where if it falls out of our immediate portfolio, we're able to direct you and guide you in a way to be able to get cybersecurity solutions or services that maybe we don't do. We have tons of connections that we can tie you into. Again, we want you to be able to at least start the conversation, like I said, say, hey, I heard this story. If you're close with a C-level person at one of your organizations, say, hey, I heard this crazy story today where someone had to miss their kid's senior banquet because they were stuck on a ransomware incident. I hate to see that happen to you. Is that something that, you don't want to have happen? Obviously they're going to say, no, I can't have that happen to me. And then, that's where you bring us in and say, hey, I have a firm that is really dedicated to helping organizations of all shapes and sizes become cyber resilient and to put themselves in a protective, and to put the organization in a protective state as well. Would you be interested in a conversation? And we have those conversations with them. We have some folks on the line here that have done business with us before, and I think, you know, if you would ask them, you know, they would confirm the fact that we don't start these conversations, you know, with the propeller on our head and, you know, making it a sales pitch and, you know, pages and pages of a slide deck and, you know, all of this stuff. We really get into the business aspect of cybersecurity and risks with them, and identify truly what it is that they need to work on and how they need to go about things. So really, again, you know, to kind of tie it up, and to get down to, you know, why you came here, you know, how do we engage in a conversation. Again, know the business really well, you know, kind of piece together what the DEFCON 5 scenario could be. So if it's a manufacturing firm and they have all of their heavy equipment, machinery that's tied into the internet, you know, you can kind of logically put that together. Oh my goodness, if those devices go down, they can't produce goods and services. If they can't produce goods and services, they can't make money. If they can't make money, then, you know, it's in jeopardy of what I could get paid for the other things that I've sold them or consulted them on. Kind of piece that together from that perspective, and just keep it a business conversation. Don't get freaked out or weirded out by the fact of it having to be, you know, you having to be an expert and know every blessed compliance that's out there, or know DMZs and, you know, Class Cs and /24 IP ranges and addresses and things of that nature. Don't do that. Just get down to the business level of it. Show some empathy. You know, show them that you care about their business and that you don't want them in a state of where there is chaos. I'm dealing with an incident right now where the organization is compromised, and they just realized, and it's been going on for months. It is a very chaotic situation that is taking place, and it's now taking all facets of the business. All the business units are now in on this. They're going away from their normal day's work, and all focuses on, you know, fixing the problem that's at hand. And then, you know, as a last reminder to you, and it's a common saying that we have here, if someone is not talking about cybersecurity and risk to your, you know, if you're not doing it, someone else is. You know, it could be an opportunity that could be missed for you to, again, generate revenue for yourself, but also to show holistic value to your clients as well, and help them from that perspective. So with that said, that is my story, and according to Mr. Colin Quinn, I'm sticking to it. So we have that. So I would invite you here, if you have any questions that you'd like to put in the chat. I do have one question that did come up, but if you have any other questions that you would like to add, be more than happy to ask that. But first question I have here is, you know, what services would be a good starting point, or solutions would be a good starting point for cybersecurity engagement. So and it's a good question. So when we start the conversation, and we'll do, you know, a needs assessment call, you'll find out that we're asking a lot of business questions. Like I've said a couple of times on this call, you know, tell us about your business model, tell us about what it is that you're doing, and whatnot. Really, you know, where we start are, you know, from a couple of different areas is, you know, from a more strategic perspective, we encourage everybody to conduct a risk assessment on their environment. And a risk assessment is not a scan or a penetration test, but it's really taking a cybersecurity framework. You know, a couple of them are NIST CSF, CIS Top 18 is one of them. We actually have a customized assessment that we've created here at IGI, and we take them through a stress test of the business as a whole. So cybersecurity is people, process, and technology. And there is a technology side, and we'll talk about that in a second here. But you know, people and process is important. So we're testing inside of that risk assessment. You know, okay, what's your incident response plan look like? We don't have one. Okay, you need one. You know, have you done an asset inventory? What does that look like? Have you done data classification? What does that look like? business continuity, disaster recovery. Have you gone through that as well? And so really what we're saying here is that we're going to get a full picture of the environment. And then one of the products of that assessment is called a plan of action and milestones. And what that is going to give them is a cybersecurity roadmap of what their top 10 critical items are that they need to work on in a listed form from most important to least on there. So we go after the top thing first because that's the biggest threat and vulnerability to the organization, and then we work our way on down. That document is important for a couple of reasons. One is it actually helps organizations to get funding for projects. We kind of call it the CYA document. We know a lot of technology folks, CIOs, CISOs, people alike that have been trying to get budget for a long time, and there's really nothing to quantify the need for the budget. They'll go in and say, hey, I need $250,000 for a SOAR project. Okay, great, we'll give you that. And then they come back and say, I need $250,000 for a XDR or MDR project. And the board's like, well, why do you need this for? You just came back to us from $250,000. I thought we were secure. This document is actually going to point out why you need it and what's the risk that you have associated with it. And it protects the CISOs or the CIOs that are in charge of cybersecurity at the organization. Because if that vulnerability is exploited, then they can go back and say, hey, we had the document here. We assumed the risk. You assumed the risk not to buy it. But this was a known risk that we had. The other piece of it is that, again, a lot of organizations are going through compliances these days, and that's the first step in any compliance that's out there, is to do an organizational-wide risk assessment to assess where the organization is at. So, it's step one in a long, arduous process for compliance or for certification. It's important. From a technology perspective, one of the things that we do offer here, and this isn't a commercial, but kind of answering the question, if we go to our more tactical technology side, is we have a solution called Nodeware, and Nodeware gives you the ability to do continuous vulnerability management, which is now becoming a requirement for a lot of compliances and regulatory items that are out there, to have continual monitoring on all digital assets that you have, whether they're on network or off network. And Nodeware is able to give you that visibility and that reporting capabilities to be able to map things out and to make logical technical decisions on your topology that you have from that perspective. So great question. Hopefully we answered it there. Any other questions? It looks like we're good. We're good here. So again, we'd love to have you reach out to us, reach out to our team. Again, if you're still feeling apprehensive about talking about cybersecurity, again, feel free to reach out to myself, and we'll get you in conversations to provide you with some information that you can share with your clients. We will support you on any calls and make sure that you're in good shape. We value our partnerships greatly here at IGI. We are very heavily channel focused, and a lot of us have worked on the partner and agent side before. So we want to make it as comfortable for you as possible. I know it gets a little, I don't know if I want to do it, because you've been burned before by other organizations, in giving them access to your client base or things of that nature. We can go on and on about the stories that we have with that, but rest assured, one of the things that we can guarantee here is that we will, treat any relationship the best way possible to show your value in bringing us in, and then show collaboration between the three entities of you, the partner, us, the vendor, and them as a client. That's a story that's resonated with a lot of different customers, is that, there are some technology things that you are able to provide that we can't. So we point all of that back to you and allow you to show value to the organization. Quick story on that. I had one partner I worked with where we did a compliance assessment, and he sold $1.2 million worth of Cisco gear because it came out in the assessment that all of their network gear was antiquated and old, and it provided a huge risk for the organization. IGI, we didn't see any of those dollars that came back to us. It was a Cisco deal that the agent had, that they were able to sell, to the organization, and but it kind of showed that collaboration between us, the partner, and the client, and triangulate it from that perspective. So again, greatly appreciate this time. Hope you got some good value out of it. Again, you'll be getting a follow-up email from us with contact information. Please do not hesitate to engage us, to make you a success. Other than that, I will close this out. Thank you so much for your attendance, and we look forward to talking to you all soon. Take care.